What you're hearing now is the voice of the future. It's a clunky, mechanical sound no one will ever consider to be the language of tomorrow. But due to this bunch of thumbs and clonks, you're able to hear my voice now. Because if these sounds had never resonated, you wouldn't have a smartphone in your pocket or a laptop around. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast or to any podcast ever. You see, these weird noises are where it all began, where computer science made its first big leap forward. You're listening to the breath of the first personal computer ever created, the ancestor of the machines that populate our world. Its name is Programma 101. 12 years before Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs laid hands on the Apple I, the Programma 101 was already clicking and whirring around the world. It's the fruit of Italian ingenuity. That's why we are talking about that. But it's also something else. If you listen closely, among the taps and the thuds, you'll hear a story. This story talks about a group of men who fought, who overcome adversities, led by a few strong beliefs. They thought that anyone should have access to computers in a world where only a few did. They believed that machines should adapt to man's wishes and not the other way around, as everyone else thought back then. They hoped to see a world where computers helped children to do their homework, while the only computers around were gargantuan mainframes calculating how missiles could annihilate the next town before the enemy could strike back. This is the story of a group of men who, in the 60s, imagined our world, the present world, the world of the future. And it wasn't easy, you know. Many called them fools. Top managers made their life difficult at work. Leading entrepreneurs of the time thought they were jokers, a danger to their own company. Their project was unfeasible, their dream out of reach. That's what the analysts claimed. But they were wrong. They were all wrong in the end. I'll show you why and how. Now bear with me. This story comes from Ars Dicendi, and today we are dealing with Italian culture. Perhaps you have already heard something about the Olivetti company, based in Ivrea, Piedmont, Italy. Until the 70s, Olivetti had been an historical manufacturer of typewriters and mechanical calculators. Their machines were renowned all around the world for being beautifully designed, from the shape of the spacebar to the color scheme of the chassis. They were pretty, they worked well, and they sold better. Several historians tried to decipher why Olivetti fared this well in the 50s, and came out with several hypotheses. All of them took into account the role of Adriano Olivetti, the leader of the company whose ideas were way ahead of his time. He took the reins of the family company in 1938. In the early 50s, he started developing a keen interest in electronics. According to Beniamino de Liguori, Secretary General of the Adriano Olivetti Foundation, the curiosity Adriano showed about electronics was at least twofold.
Da una parte c'è un elemento di tipo, come dire, industriale, di sviluppo dell'azienda.
On the one hand, Adriano Olivetti's interest in electronics is part of his entrepreneurial style. People either forget or over-accentuate how good a businessman Adriano was. Sometimes he's depicted as a shark, sometimes as a saint with his head in the clouds. I think he had a clear, well-structured vision of how electronics would have changed the nature of the firm. So when he started investing in electronics, he was first and foremost aiming to grow Olivetti as a company. On the other hand, this plan intertwines with the very core of Olivetti's ideology, which promoted technology and innovation as key factors in a vast campaign of social reforms. According to Adriano Olivetti, computers exist to serve mankind, to free humanity from ancient hard labor, as he once said. So, in a few words, promoting electronics was part of an entrepreneurial plan, But this plan could only have worked if rooted into a wider vision, involving the creation of an ideal, more human city, the so-called City of Men. The rules of this grand project were simple. Industry exists to make a profit, but it can do something more. It can be an integral part of modern society, and as many other forces, like arts and literature, industry ought to improve everyone's quality of life. That's one of his goals. The world Adriano Olivetti envisioned was very different from the one he was living in, from the one we are living in even now, more than 50 years later. So he was receptive to any kind of technological innovation that could foster his vision. That's why he believed in electronics, when most businessmen didn't know a thing about it. Back in the 50s, computer science was at its dawn, and no one believed computers were going to have such an immense impact on everyday life. Nevertheless, Adriano Olivetti was convinced that electronics could be a powerful instrument to improve the human condition in general. But he didn't just think about it. In 1956, the Olivetti's electronics division was born. He entrusted the lab to one bright engineer, Mario Chu, who had quite an international profile, particularly in the 50s, especially in Italy. As you may have guessed, Chu wasn't of Italian heritage, despite being an Italian citizen. He was the son of a Chinese diplomat to the Holy See, born and raised in Rome. After he took his degree at Columbia University, he was considered to be one of the most talented experts in electronics you could hire back in the days. Together with Adriano Olivetti, they built the team behind the Elea 1903, one of the first commercial transistor-based mainframes ever produced. It was a pride for the company, an achievement recognized by the President of Italy himself, who visited the lab and congratulated the team for the accomplishment. It was a promising start, and it could have led Italy to become one major player in the electronics business. But things took a different turn. The bell was already tolling for the electronics division. The first hit was Adriano Olivetti's sudden death. He was killed by a stroke in 1960. 1 year later, Mario Chu died in a car accident. Over the years, many rumors have circulated regarding the alleged involvement of CIA agents in these deaths. A more plausible explanation is that grey eminences used political means to undermine the Olivetti company, the Liguori.
Non c'è ombra di dubbio che la divisione elettronica.
It is clear that the very existence of the electronics division caused some friction between Italy and the US. We know for certain that between 1952 and the national elections in 1958, Adriano Olivetti and his company have been spied by a CIA operative. It's easy to guess why Olivetti was a matter of concern for the USA. From a geopolitical point of view, Italy constantly wavered between siding with America and sympathizing with the Soviet Union. This is why, according to the Americans, Italy could not take the lead in such an important field as electronics, which back then had a profound impact on the arms industry, on war in general. Besides that, Adriano Olivetti was publicly promoting his own political, social and economic model, one model which appealed to the moderate countries from the Eastern Bloc. So, electronics should not be Italy's business. And as a matter of fact, the entire sector was shut down. Everything was packed and sent back to the US. More than 50 years later, we are still striving to understand in which measure the demise of the Olivetti Electronics division was a consequence of the political games played during the Cold War. However, it's clear that, at least on a financial level, the Italian economic crisis had a quite significant impact on the company. Olivetti bonds plummeted from 11,000 lire in 1962 to 1,500 lire in 1964, And 64 is the year when the so-called rescue team took the wheel of the company.